All right. Tonight on Podcast Them Down, the infection has been removed. The soul of this machine has improved.
Podcast Them Down. Hail, Metal Nation! You are listening to Podcast Them Down. That was Mike with his first ever intro, and send your feedback to Mike at podcastthemdown.com. No, I think it was good. And it's going to tie into today's subject, which is Fear Factory, which is a band I have been successfully avoiding for most of their career. So I'm very fascinated to learn about what we're going to talk about. Because it sounds very, sounds like it's going to be like a soap opera-y, maybe.
Yes, it's pretty ridiculous.
All right,
so let's get into the history of Fear Factory. I know a good bit of this, but so full disclosure, I've got my Wikipedia summary over on my other screen here to jog my memory. I got it too, so I can follow along. And you too can follow along, unless you're driving. All right. So, kind of like the beginning story of how this started was that Dino Cazares, who is a relatively well-known metal guitarist, and Burton Seabell kind of met up, and they lived in the same apartment complex.
Yeah, I know both those names. They've been all over Blabbermouth for years.
Yes.
And I think it's because they've been taking shots at each other, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm in. All right, keep going.
And actually, I don't think I realized this. Raymond Herrera has been in the band from the beginning. He was in the band at the beginning as well. He was the drummer. And I'll get into. I won't get into like huge detail for the beginnings because it kind of seems like smooth sailing up to a point. So they record. They meet up, they form, and they record "Soul of a New Machine." Some background on Fear Factory as like a stepping stone in a metalhead's journey. The first time you hear Factory, you're likely unfamiliar with death metal, right? Like the first time. And when you hear Fear Factory, you hear they've got like the staccato, like riffage. You've got the blast beats and the crazy double bass, so everybody's mind is blown. And then you get into death metal afterwards. You're like, oh, everybody does this. But Soul of a New Machine comes out, and it's very, very much death metal. But it's got this kind of industrial sort of, I would say, aesthetic. Mm-hmm. For the most part, the vocals are very brutal. It's screamed, but Burton sings some, which creates a somewhat unique style, at least at the time. There wasn't a whole lot of like blast beat, tremolo picking, and then kind of going into this kind of softer sung part and then back to blast. So it's Soul of a New Machine is interesting. It's actually heavy. It's definitely a lot more reminiscent of death metal. So a few years later, they released Demanufacture. Demanufacture is the quintessential Fear Factory album because it sounds like they will come to sound. Burton at the time had spent some time trying to like re-engineer his voice, if that makes sense. So he was like, I want to get a different sound. And this is where he debuts this. Demanufacture, it's a lot more accessible. It's the production's a lot more crisp. But you still got the heavy palm muting, tremolo picking, double bass.
The Wikipedia article describes it as roaring rather than growled, but still aggressive.
It does. That description actually makes sense, right? Like it's not completely wrong. So
It says there were key samples, loops, and electronic flourishes. So that's where I guess the industrial, I don't know if it's fair to call them industrial, but where the industrial element came from.
No, it's definitely a lot more prominent in Demanufacture. From Demanufacture on, they're basically like this industrial groove metal with like heavy death metal influence. They never cross totally into like new metal. Totally. But we'll get into that.
Yeah,
okay,
so well, I guess the industrial aspect wouldn't be like what Rammstein's industrial aspect is. Like, it's a different flavor, I assume.
Yeah, it's there's a lot more. It's kind of heavy keys, sampling, and lyrical themes.
Got it.
So pretty much every album that they have is based around like machines and almost like 1984-ish type shit. You know, it's like oppression and machines. So it's like the Terminator, but every album.
Or perhaps the Matrix before the Matrix came out.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. So before Demanufacture came out, Christian Old Wolbers, I think his name is. I never knew how to pronounce it, but he became their bassist, and this was like the core Fear Factory group for quite a while. Demanufacture got really popular. They released a bunch of remix albums, which I don't understand. And when I say remix, I mean like they got DJs or something. I don't know.
Oh, like not the Shameless Money Grab remix, but like changing it.
Yes, I never bothered with them because I was gonna get them when I was. They were one of the earlier bands that I got into, that you could consider extreme, quote unquote. But yeah, then I learned that they were just remixes, and I was like, I don't really give a shit about any of this, so I never bothered. Okay, so Demanufacture, very very successful, much more accessible. Obsolete comes next. Obsolete is, in my opinion, a fantastic album. Also released with the Core 4, which, just as a reminder, is Dino Cazares, Burton Seabell, Christian Old Wolbers, and Raymond Herrera. So Obsolete pretty much kind of continues where Demanufacture left off.
All right, that came out in 98.
Yep.
And it says it's the debut use of 7-string guitars tuned down a step.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. They were tuned B in Demanufacture, I believe. And Dino loves extended range guitars. So Obsolete, it's a little bit more like epic in scope. I think the music is a little bit more dynamic. But there's one interesting song on this album, which is Edge Crusher. Edge Crusher is just fucking new metal. Like, it's got like turntable scratching and all this shit.
It's track 2. It's not even buried in the album.
No, I want to say it was a single. Like they really led with it. And also there is there's a cover of Cars. Gary Newman's Cars on this album with Gary Newman on it, and you've heard it. It's been in ads, right? Like,
there it is. Yeah.
They got a lot of like mainstream play because of Cars in particular. But I want to point out Edge Crusher, and then I want to get into Christian Old Wolbers a bit.
I'm sorry. Additional personnel: Reese Fulber, keyboards and programming, string arrangements; DJ Zodiac, technical scratching.
Yeah, it's pretty much
Gary Newman, spoken words, vocals.
right, so oh yeah, Obsolete's like I forget that it's a concept album, but I don't know what the fuck it's about. It sounds crazy. Yeah, its characters include the Edge Crusher, Smasher Devourer, and the Securitron monitoring system.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so Christian Old Wolbers, he's super into hip hop.
Okay.
So I want to say he's gone in like I'm probably going to get this wrong, but he has some involvement with Run DMC and a few other things, which is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that,
Right.
but I feel like the longer Fear Factory goes on with this core group,
He co-wrote and played bass on Snoop Dogg's album Paid the Cost to Be the Boss. He helped Cypress Hill with their rock outfit and wrote songs for their Stoned Raiders and Skull and Bones albums. There's probably more. I'm just skimming.
yeah. But as they go on, I feel like you start getting more of this influence.
Okay.
So then, after Obsolete, Digimortal comes out, and Digimortal sucks. It's awful.
Yeah.
I'll try to be diplomatic about
the
it.
section on you're not alone on that apparently, because the section on Wikipedia says Digimortal and Demise.
Yeah. And one of the things that we have to address while talking about Digimortal is the song Back the Fuck Up.
I almost spit all over the microphone.
So, it's Cypress Hill that Old Wolbers is involved in, not Run DMC. Okay, so as the Wikipedia here states, in a move uncharacteristic for the band, Be Real of the rap group Cypress Hill is featured as a guest vocalist on Back the Fuck Up, contributing elements of hardcore hip hop. Cazares and Old Wolbers had guested on Cypress Hill's 2000 album Skull and Bones. So this album just sort of, it doesn't do particularly well, and then where it fails a lot, like hard. And I want to say that I've read since that Dino was super unhappy with songs like Back the Fuck Up. Or at least he kind of hinted at it, like, oh, I don't know about this. But,
all tracks were written by Fear Factory except track 8 written by Be Real, which is Back the Fuck Up.
Yeah. So it's not a very good album. And then they die. They break up, and it's sort of weird. It's like nobody knows exactly what happened, but they reform almost instantaneously without Dino Cazares. And this is where I find Fear Factory to start getting hilarious. So
okay, yeah. So it looks like they got the timeline on Wikipedia, and there's like the tiniest gap in the first run of the band. The only difference is that Christian Oldie Wolbers took over guitars and vocals from Dino, and then they got some guy on bass.
Byron Stroud, who used to be in Strapping Young Lad.
Backing vocals. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, there starts to be like a lot of infighting at this point. But I think Dino more or less is just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go away. Okay. I don't want to deal with it. I'm sure that's not entirely true, but he sort of just keeps doing his other shit. Dino's in like a million bands. He was in Brujeria for a while. He started a group called Divine Heresy. He's got Assassino. So he's in just a ton of stuff. So he keeps on doing his thing. So Fear Factory then comes out with Archetype, and Archetype gets kind of like, I want to say it got sort of middling reviews. There are tracks on it that I think are really good, but the song Archetype has the lyric, which is just super unsubtle. The infection has been removed. The soul of this machine is improved. And they're very clearly talking about Dino. Right.
Yep.
And I think the first half of the album is pretty decent, and the latter half is just not as strong. But it's not terrible. I didn't think it was terrible. I'm
looking at the Metal Archives scores.
And
I was hoping to see a much bigger dip for Digimortal, but it got the same as Demanufacture.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, 69%. Hey, heyo. And then Archetype got 78%. I'm curious. Transgression got the next one got much worse.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. Okay. So, Archetype comes out. This is about when I first saw them, interestingly. And when I saw them, they put on a decent show, but they had some performance issues. And I'm going to hold on to those.
Okay.
Because they're funny later. Okay. So Transgression, the next album, is really bad. It's a bad album. It doesn't sound right. I want to say, to my ears, there's like audible clipping in the mix.
Well, that was the style in the mid 2000s.
just to make it sound like absolute garbage.
Right.
One of the most unforgivable things about Transgression, though, is the cover of U2's "I Will Follow," because apparently, like I heard their cover and it's awful, and then I heard the original song and it's awful. It's like, oh, it's a really faithful cover. It was just just shit song.
Hate U2.
Yeah. So basically, I want to say that Burton has come out and has said that they were kind of pushed to release this. I want to say for a touring cycle or something, but basically they weren't really ready to put out anything, and then out came Transgression.
Oh, it says here that they preponed the album's release. I've never heard the term preponed.
Yeah.
The album's release date from 4 months away to just a month and a half, so the band would have a new album to support on the inaugural Gigantour with Megadeth, Dave Mustaine. And I have that DVD. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I got some Fear Factory we might have to watch.
All right. So yeah, it wasn't a very good album, and then they break up again. And it's not sort of clear what happened, but there starts to be this like fluttering of news online. It's like, oh, Fear Factory's back together. Fear Factory's back together. It's like, oh, interesting. And it's Dino and Burton and nobody else. Oh. So Raymond Herrera and Christian Old Wolbers are not involved. And this gets hilarious because Dino and Burton are like, no, Fear Factory's back, and then Raymond and Christian Old Wolbers are like, no.
What are you talking about?
We're Fear Factory. I don't know who the fuck you guys are. And they're like, in fact, we had this whole album written. And so then Fear Factory, Dino and Burton release Mechanized, which is a strong album. It's a very strong Fear Factory album. And at the same time, Christian Old Wolbers and Raymond Herrera release an album under the name I think it's Archaea. Yeah. Is that right?
I saw that somewhere.
Archaea. So it's Arkaea. And this consists of tracks that were apparently intended for the new Fear Factory album. And it's not very good. It's not a good album. especially when you compare it to Mechanize, which is a really strong album.
Well, Dino's had quite a while to work on the album.
Now, from here on out, things are really funny. So they don't play Archetyped anymore. They don't play Archetyped at all anymore. They continually are putting out news statements or press statements, about like, oh, fuck that guy. He's an asshole. And let's see. Kazari said Bell wanted to reunite the classic Fear Factory lineup, but that Herrera and Wolbers refused to be part of any reunion with Kazari's. Bell said he wanted to fire the band's manager, Christy Prisky, who was Wolber's wife.
Oops.
Yeah, so... during an interview in 2009, Kazari said he would never have a working relationship with Raymond and Wolbers again. They were too money-driven and criticized the music they recorded on Archetype for being too similar to the band's earlier output. So they released Mechanize. It is very much a return to form. It's a lot more aggressive. And to be honest with you, I start becoming inundated by Fear Factory at this point. So I'm not as familiar with a lot of their later output. But
I was saying this recently, in a future episode, Dave and I will have been talking about Amon Amarth, and I said, this is when I stopped paying to Amon Amarth, right here.
Right.
So, all right, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So they release a few other albums. They have The Industrialist and Genexus. Genexus in particular got really good reviews. Here's an interesting blurb from the wiki. Byron Stroud left the band in 2012 saying, life's too short to spend it with people who don't respect you. Oh, wow, this is ridiculous. In one interview, Kazari said that he did not know why Stroud decided to leave, and he could not play the bass parts on Mechanize, prompting Kazari's to do it himself. So, Kazari's posts a lot on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, and he says shit that he shouldn't say. And he says it freely and does not care. And we'll get back to that too. Kazari's commented starting the status of Fear Factory albums Archetype and Transgression, and the band's decision not to play songs from them live, saying they don't count as Fear Factory albums.
Ooh.
So
looks like Gene Hoglan. That's when Gene Hoglan was playing for them too.
Yeah, and he's
that first album coming back.
Though I think the drums on Mechanize were programmed, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, less work for Gene.
Yeah, Gene can clearly play them, but okay. So they released a few more albums. They got The Industrialist and Genexus, and they're both pretty well received. And then they go on hiatus again, and there's apparently a number of lawsuits. And this goes back and forth. It's between Burton, Dino, Old Wolbers, and Herrera. And somehow it ends up with only Dino owns rights to Fear Factory. Burton does not. They're in the band together, but Burton does not own rights.
How did he get that to happen? That's impressive.
Dino is, I believe he described it as like he bought it from like arbitration or something, like bankruptcy happened and he went into debt to purchase. Some crazy shit happened. And Dino went out of his way to go buy the rights to Fear Factory. Wow. Excluding Burton. So they've had, somewhere in the middle of all this, they have a new album recorded with vocals recorded by Burton C. Bell. and I want to say it was like 2017 or 2018 ish that it was recorded, but it doesn't get released until like 2021, I believe. It takes a while, and in the during this process, or during this weird, intermediary state here, Burton's like, I'm leaving. Fuck this. I hate Dino. I hate Fear Factory. I'm never doing it again. So there's an unreleased album with vocals from Burton that will be released, and Burton has said, I don't want to be here anymore. So he leaves. Dino continuously posts shit on social media where he's like, the window's closing, Burton, if you want to rejoin Fear Factory. But at the same time, people are talking about it. It's like, oh yeah, Burton requires just so many takes to do anything. You don't know what it's like working with him in the studio. Burton, if you want to come back, man. And this is where I want to go back. Well, this is where I want to go back to Burton's performance.
Okay.
Seeing him. He's terrible live. He's awful. Like, and I hate to say that, his voice on record sounds good. It works really well with the music. But my issue with Fear Factory is like, just from a song structure standpoint and from a vocal melody standpoint, it's simple, right? Dino's playing is by far the most interesting thing in Fear Factory, just from like an individual talent perspective. But live, Burton he misses notes. He's just kind of whacked, in my opinion. It just doesn't come across well. I saw them at a show where a band called The Browning was opening for them, and I thankfully arrived too late to see The Browning, which is a fusion of metalcore and dubstep, I believe. And I'm watching them, and they're okay, but it's, man, Dino was playing great. Burton's just missing notes and shit. So it didn't surprise me to hear Dino say, he requires a lot of studio help. However, it doesn't really seem like the kind of thing that you should broadcast.
Right.
So they released their new album, The Aggression Continuum, which I think got decent reviews. I've listened to it a little bit. Nothing jumped out at me. And now that leaves us to where we are today.
It says his vocals are on the album as they were recorded in 2017.
Yeah. I mean, they're there. It's definitely Burton. But now he's picked out a new vocalist, and nobody knows who it is. And he won't say. He was like, well, I'm going to release a song with him on it. And now they have a tour in a month.
No.
So nobody knows who's going to be singing. Dino posted on Twitter recently saying, oh, well, he's 36 and his initials are AI. I have no idea who that could be. But people are like, dude, you're about to go on
Albert
tour.
Einstein.
That's him. You got it. You figured it out. But he's he's going and he's like trying to sell all this shit, and it's like, I don't even know who the hell who's gonna be your singer. Like, what's happening? So yeah, they're touring with Static X and Mushroom Head.
Ugh.
Oh no!
I'll be home that day.
Oh, and Twisted.
Oh
no! Wow, this tour is gonna suck.
Well, you haven't heard the new singer.
It's true. I wouldn't mind seeing Static X, but other than that, anyway, that leaves us where we are now. that leaves us where we are now, where we have a full band. We don't know who's in it. We don't know who the vocalist is going to be. Dino kind of repeatedly just keeps teasing stuff and saying shit that maybe he shouldn't say. Though I don't think he said anything particularly. I don't think he said anything particularly inflammatory recently. But yeah, there we go. So that's the drama of Fear Factory. They're suing each other, excluding their own band members.
I love it. Maybe Dino, at least lately, is like a master of staying in the news. You know, because he has no news, but he keeps. It's just like, I'll post something incendiary on Twitter.
I mean,
and then everyone will talk about Fear Factory again.
On New Year's, he posts something, and I guess there's vocals on it, and somebody replies, "Who is singing?" And he replies, "The vocalist."
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's from the official Fear Factory Twitter. That's amazing. But yeah, okay. That's it.
Well,
that's about it.
That was good. I enjoyed that. That was a fun journey. We might have to do an update.
Yeah.
After they break up the next time and find out what the next set of lawsuits are.
I'm really fascinated to know who's going to be the new vocalist. I hate to say it. They can only go up. Burton is actually in his own band now called Ascension of the Watchers.
Okay.
And it's all him. And it's just sort of mid-tempo, sort of boring-ish to me. And I just I can't do it. I can't get into it.
Wait till you see him do it all live at once.
Oh, God. Yeah, if Fear Factory just has that magic touch for whatever it is, and everything that splits off of it just kind of doesn't quite do it.
All right, well, until next time, Metal Nation, keep it litigious and buy up all the song rights. Yeah, I mean, they're just one of those bands, man. Like,
they're decent, but for how good they are or aren't, there's way too much drama to justify any of it. You know,
I'm looking at this photo of them in 2016 on stage, and it's like the schlubbiest band ever.
Yeah,
Like, that guy needs a shower.